And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day, another great week, in fact, in this greatest nation on God's green earth. Not such great news on the diplomatic front. President Trump said today that the month-long ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is on massive life support. While Trump said the ceasefire remains in place, he said it is unbelievably weak. Both Iran and the U.S. have fired shots at each other in the Strait of Hormuz since the ceasefire took effect. More to the immediate point, the Iranian negotiators have sent their official reply to the long-term ceasefire proposal submitted by U.S. officials last week. Remember, it had 14 clauses, I believe was the final total, and it was one page. And the Iranians took their time analyzing it, evaluating it, and they reportedly just want negotiations that are simpler, that focus on ending the war, including in Lebanon. And they rejected U.S. demands to dismantle their nuclear facilities and suspend uranium enrichment for some 20 years. They reportedly instead offered 5-year suspension of their nuclear program, that's all, and dilution of part of their uranium stockpile by mixing higher enriched uranium into natural or depleted uranium to lower its purity. I have no idea what that means ultimately, but I think neither does President Trump, and he doesn't like the idea. They also want to transfer the rest of the enriched uranium to a third country. Can we imagine that country might be China? President Trump, of course, going to China soon. President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social that the Iranian counter-proposal was, in capital letters with an exclamation point, totally unacceptable. However, Trump is nourishing other ideas. He told Fox News today that he is seriously considering creating a new 51st state. Not Canada this time, not a state as big and spacious and huge and close as Canada. The new 51st state that President Trump has in mind is Venezuela. This is after abducting the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. Fox News congressional correspondent reported on this morning that Trump had spoken to Fox News host John Roberts, not the Supreme Court justice, just now, and that the president had said that he is, quote, seriously considering making Venezuela the 51st U.S. state. The president also reportedly told Roberts that Venezuela loves Trump. Well, of course they do. I mean, before noting that there was $40 trillion in oil in the nation of Venezuela, or would it be the Venezuelan state? It would also have an impact in increasing the Spanish-speaking Latino orientation, composition of the U.S. population. And what is amazing here is for so many years, conservatives in particular have emphasized the primacy of the English language, not creating a situation where we have a mess like Canada, where they have 2 official languages. But if we're going to be incorporating Venezuela as part of our country, wouldn't that create more pressure to create a second official language in this country, which would, of course, be Spanish? Who knows? But I think the idea that the population of Venezuela would rally to the notion of becoming part of the USA is every bit as far-fetched as the assumption that Canadians were just dying to become part of Americans, which they clearly are not. Meanwhile, most Americans may have spent Sunday of Mother's Day with their families or honoring mom somehow. We had a great day that we spent with some of our grandchildren, not all of them, and who could honor the mother of our clan, Diane, my wife of, believe it or not, 41 years. And so we had that kind of Mother's Day Sunday. Trump spent more than an hour on his Sunday reposting praise for Melania? No, praise for himself on Truth Social. He did that late Sunday by sharing AI-generated imagery, hailing him as the greatest from several MAGA loyalist accounts and attacking Democratic opponents. The president opened the spree by declaring, "Excellent poll numbers, thank you," without linking to any poll specifically that he was referencing, before unloading a series of reposts from an account called Women for Trump. The 10 posts shared from the account onto Trump's feed included messages reading, "Trump, the real deal, a true American badass. Thank God for Trump, the greatest of all time, and presidents come and go, but he will forever be remembered as the GOAT," which is not a phrase of derision. It's spelled out. It's an acronym for GOAT, G-O-A-T, greatest of all time. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine, there is a startling editorial in the Wall Street Journal today that includes the latest reports that indicate that Ukraine may be miraculously turning the tide of war. This at a time when the Dispatch is reporting that Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating a 3-day ceasefire yesterday, a break in the fighting that was intended to extend from Saturday to today to allow Russia to celebrate Victory Day, which celebrates the defeat of Nazi Germany on May 9th. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that while Russia had so far refrained from large-scale attacks, it was not even particularly trying to cease combat along the front lines. Russia accused Ukrainian forces of carrying out similar attacks along the front line, including on multiple civilian targets. On Friday, Trump claimed that Zelensky and Vladimir Putin had agreed to the ceasefire, along with a prisoner swap at his request. And then there is this question: why so few babies? Yes, here in the United States, but it's actually a trend around the world, particularly in some of those countries that are most generous with their societal benefits that they extend to young families. Countries like is in Scandinavia, where also the number of children, the number of babies, has greatly decreased. We're going to be speaking to Nick Eberstadt, who has been warning about the baby bust for years and years coming up, and also about why that baby bust might be particularly painful and problematic for China. We'll be getting to that and more coming up here on the Michael Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, on this day after Mother's Day, isn't it surprising that two of the leading news outlets in the world, really, have both released information about problematic developments in terms of family structure? First of all, the New York Times has a big piece on why so few babies. We might have overlooked the biggest reason of all. And then in the Washington Post, they have a comparable report about the disappearance of men from the workforce, both men who are old and men who are young leaving the workforce. Now, it turns out to understand what's going on here, the same source is invaluable. I'm talking about Nick Eberstadt, who's been a friend of the show. He's been on before. He is the Henry Wendt Chair in Political Economy at the American Enterprise Institute, where he researches and writes extensively on demographics, economic development, and poverty. One of his many books is Men Without Work, the post-pandemic edition, plus his extensive work and writing on the depopulation bomb. Nick, were you surprised to see that both of these big newspapers at the same time are dealing with people basically dropping out of the normal pattern of marriage, family, and work? Is that something that is a American concern, or is it a worldwide concern?
Well, the birth crash, Michael, I think is a global phenomenon. We're actually a little late to the party if you compare us to Europe or to East Asia or now to other parts of the world where one birth per woman per lifetime is becoming the new norm. The U.S. situation with lapse, I think, has many, unfortunately, exceptional characteristics that are made in the USA.
And in terms of the main point that they make in the New York Times, what they're saying in their very long article is that what makes these disparate cultures, policy environments, and demographics, researchers are now realizing, is young people's inescapable and crushing sense that the future is too uncertain for the lifelong commitment to parenthood. Call it the vibes theory of demographic decline. Do you think that theory has substance to it?
Well, there's been about a century and a half of social science homework on the correlates and determinants of different fertility patterns. And there are all of these beautiful theories, and there's always a killer exception that kind of like throws the theory into the trash can. Modernization, for example, makes sense until you see that countries like Burma, Myanmar, and Nepal, among the poorest countries in the world, are also now entering the club of voluntary below replacement childbearing patterns. There are a lot of reasons that people all around the world are fewer children. I'm not sure the economists are the best people to talk to about this at this point. I mean, some of the religious leaders might be a little bit better informed about this. What you see everywhere, though, the kind of a revealed preference is the flight for autonomy, the fight for self-actualization, and the vote for convenience. Those of us who have children know that there are many marvelous things about them, miraculous things about them, but one thing that children are not is convenient.
No, they can make demands. That's the whole point. Are there exceptions to the general pattern of fewer children that you're talking about? Countries that have either followed some kind of national policy or some ethnic background policy or something that means that their population growth is actually continuing at a healthy level rather than the depopulation bomb that you write about?
As far as I can tell, Michael, pronatal policies around the world have been very expensive with precious little in the way of demographic results to show. I mean, you can go from Singapore to Hungary to Putin's Russia to France and Scandinavia, and you end up getting below replacement birth rates pretty much anywhere you look. The fascinating exception to modernity, of course, is Israel. Birth levels, childbearing levels for Israeli degree increasing. When you start parsing this out, it's not just a matter of the ultra-Orthodox. When you look at Israeli Jews who describe themselves as entirely secular, as entirely non-religious, their level of childbearing is about 2 babies per woman per lifetime, which, to put this in context, is about an extra baby per lifetime in comparison to secular Jews in the United States.
And then if you include the people who self-identify as Orthodox, it's even higher. And the crucial thing is the Palestinian population in Israel, which is 20% of the overall population, is also relatively high, but has not been as high as it has been, particularly among religious Jews. So meanwhile, we have another statistical anomaly and threat, which is men leaving the workplace and leaving the working population. Why is that applying so strongly in the United States to both young men who are not going to work and older men who are leaving work early? We'll continue that conversation with Nick Eberstadt of the American Enterprise Institute coming up here on The Medved Show. Subscribe to it and join us. Sometimes a number just knocks you out of your seat and can actually stun you. And that has been the case in a piece written by Nick Eberstadt, who is the chair of political economy at the American Enterprise Institute, the author of many books, including Men Without Work, and he has a special post-pandemic edition. But the number that actually has to knock you out when you read it is a figure from the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the federal government that since Donald Trump took over the presidency in January of 2025 for his second term, the U.S. economy has created 369,000 new jobs. Now, that's pretty good in terms of job creation, but listen to this. What percentage of those new jobs have gone to men? 6%. 94% of the new jobs have gone to women in this country. What's happening with guys? How come they're not getting out of bed or getting out of the basement where you're playing computer games and going to work? What's going on? Okay, Nick Eberstadt, you're the man to explain this anomaly. What's happening?
Well, it didn't start under President Trump, Michael. We've had 2 generations of a flight from work by men in the United States. Started in the mid-'60s, and this has it's never really stopped. For men in the prime of life, 25 to 54, we now have work rates that are basically comparable to late Depression era. The first time that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you mentioned, ever measured unemployment and employment in the current way we did was in the 1940 census, when national unemployment was 14%.
Wow.
Last month's work rate for prime age men was just about the same as when it was measured in March of 1940. So we have basically a depression scale problem with work for prime age men in our country. And we don't notice it in part because we don't look at it properly. We're using a system devised by people who never could have imagined that a man without work wouldn't be looking for a job. But nowadays, for every one guy in this age group who doesn't have a job that's looking for one, there are over 3 who are neither working nor looking for work. So we have 7 million guys who are basically lost to the work economy, just in the 25 to 54 group.
Okay, what is different about men? I mean, I know that the numbers show that now women are much more likely to actually attend 4-year colleges and universities and to graduate from those institutions. But aside from the educational difference, what is holding men back when women apparently, 94% of the new jobs in the last year and a half? That's stunning. Why would women be doing so much better?
I have a theory, but first let me throw some facts. We have an invisible army of about 25 million ex-cons in our country today. It's invisible because our government doesn't identify it as a red. A little bit of back of the envelope suggests that that means 1 out of every 7 adult men has a felony in his background in our country, like while we're talking right now. There's nothing like that.
One out of 7 adult males?
Mm-hmm. 1 out of 7 adult males would have and so we can imagine how that might be affecting a difference between men and women. There are plenty of female felons, but men are much better at it. The other thing that I'd mention is our archipelago of disability programs. They're not as generous as some of the European social welfare programs. European friends, many of this all the time, but they seem to have the effect of being able, penurious as they may be, to support a non-work approach to life for many millions of these 7 million unworking men. So these are 2 of the factors that I think are involved. I'd mention one other thing. It may be, and this is just a guess on my part, that men in America are, it's not the condition, it's just that they're going this way first. Because in addition to the 7 million men we're describing, there are about 3.5 million women in the prime of life who are neither working nor looking for work, have no kids at home, and also no husband at home. And according to the time use numbers, they're just about as likely to be using pain medication every day as the unworking men. So I hope I am wrong about this, but I wonder whether the men are just the leading indicator of dysfunction in this sort of new misery that we see in our country.
The number you went back to, 1940, which was a number when we were still plagued by the Depression. Obviously, what solved that problem was 16 million men who were drafted or volunteered for the armed services because we were involved in World War II in 1941, starting at the end of 41. So with all of that, has the decline of military service or even a sense of obligation of military service for men, has that had an impact on this male-female difference?
Very good question, Michael. I mean, what I can tell you is that from 45 until 65, there was no sign of a flight from work by men in our labor force statistics numbers. Something or some things started in the mid-60s and haven't stopped since then.
And the most obvious of those would be?
Fracturing of the family, expansion of the new welfare state, explosion of crime and punishment, and the new wave of immigration in the United States. By the way, immigrant men, no matter what their ethnicity, no matter what their education level, are more likely to be in the workforce than their native-born counterparts.
Which is also a stunning number. There's a great deal of this material in the pieces by Nick Eberstadt, our guest. You can see them at our website at michaelmedved.com. Also, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to enjoy at a different level conversations like this one. That's at Michael Medved Official. That's the YouTube channel. Nick Eberstadt, thank you for your enlightenment. We will be right back on The Medved Show.
Listeners love Michael Medved.
I listen to you occasionally when I'm driving. It turns my stomach every time I do. Lately, you've been sounding like a raving lunatic. You upset me so much. You never tell the truth.
I truly believe you're delusional.
You don't have a clue.
You're wrong again. What's going on in your head?
You are no good for the country.
People like you who are a monster. Have you no shame?
The Michael Medved Show. Sign up today for our free weekly newsletter at michaelmedved.com.
If you appreciate some of our on-air conversations, like the talks we just had with Nick Eberstadt of American Enterprise Institute, then you should hear them and see them. See them as well. How? By checking out the Medved Official YouTube channel, featuring full interviews with guests like Brett Stevens, Tom Nichols, Nick Kristof, John Bolton, David Frum, John Yoo, and many more. Just search Medved Official on YouTube and hit subscribe and join us. Appreciate that intention. Meanwhile, there is news from CBS. President Trump says that he aims to suspend federal gas tax for a period of time. President Trump said in a phone interview with CBS News this morning that he aims to suspend the federal gas tax for a period of time. I think it's a great idea, the president said. Yup, we're going to take off the gas tax for a period of time, and when gas goes down, we'll let it phase back in. Gas prices have soared over 50% since the start of the Iran war on February 28th, hitting a high of over $4.52 on Sunday, that according to AAA. Analysts say the prices are likely to remain high, with Iran blocking the access to the Strait of Hormuz. But suspending the excise taxes, 18.4 cents per gallon on gas and 24.4 cents a gallon on diesel, requires an act of Congress. And passing it would cost the federal government about $500 million per week. So before this actually happens, it's unclear and confusing, because many of the gas taxes that we all pay are state gas taxes, which is one of the reasons that Washington, where I live, has some of the highest gas prices in the country. It's not because gas is so remote from here. It's because the state taxes for gasoline are so high. Washington has had no state income tax, the only blue state that had that distinction. But now the Democrats who misrule in Olympia, Washington, the state capital, seem to have succeeded in creating a, quote, millionaires tax, which will basically violate the state constitution in applying an income tax, though they claim it's only for millionaires. In California, they have only for billionaires, and they're chasing the billionaires away. Well, they can't come to Washington safely anymore. Meanwhile, consumer sentiment continued to decline this month, as reported on CNN, reaching a fresh record low as the war in Iran drags on, keeping energy prices elevated. The University of Michigan's latest consumer survey, released on Friday, showed sentiment fell early this month to a preliminary reading of 48.2. This is the lowest on record going back to 1952. To 1952? Are you kidding me? You have to go back to the middle of the Korean War to have this kind of consumer sentiment, as negative as it is now. But Kevin Hassett on CNBC still speaks on behalf of the White House. He's President Trump's chief economic advisor, and he speaks about the low consumer sentiment. This is clip 20.
I think that one of the things that's happening is that the world is changing so fast right now that President Trump has sort of taken every problem on earth and got 100% at fixing it. And I think that can be stressful for people to see so much change going on. But the bottom line is that in the end, when we look at what happens for elections, that people look at their wallets, they see how they're doing. The economy is growing very strong. Incomes are growing. And Ray Fair, you and I have talked about Ray Fair for 20 years. Ray Fair of Yale says that GDP in the second quarter is the thing that tells you what's going to happen in the election. And so I think that right now Republicans should feel very, very good about the trajectory of the economy.
Okay, President Trump is taking every problem on earth, and he's gone 100% at fixing it. Could that be a little bit of an exaggeration or an oversimplification? The president himself was in the Oval Office today and boasted about his own flexibility, which is particularly important in wartime. This is clip 7.
In the world, I built it largely in my first term, and I didn't know I'd be using it quite this much in my second term. But very simply, when they say, does he have a plan? Yeah, I have a plan. Plan is very simple. In war, you have to change. You have to be flexible. You have a lot of plans, but you have to do different plans in different days. But I have a great plan. But the plan is they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they didn't say that in their letter.
Okay, the plan is they cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's not a plan. It's a negativity, is it not? Or would it be concepts of a plan? And the difficulty here is that obviously President Trump was not prepared in his plans before the war to the idea that they could very easily close the Strait of Hormuz. And this, again, will go down in history as a very significant historic mistake. In other words, not to include in your initial attack on Iran the expectation that they're going to respond, at least in part, by going after the world economy, not just the U.S. economy, by closing and mining and patrolling and controlling the Strait of Hormuz. The fact that they are now insisting on continued control of the Strait of Hormuz before they actually do a peace agreement, that failure of anticipation is deeply problematic. Meanwhile, there is an announcement from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which may encourage a lot of Americans and may surprise a lot of supporters of Israel, an announcement by the Israeli Prime Minister. And Cory Booker, who is considered to be one of those Democrats who is thinking about or likely to pursue another campaign for the presidency, also has a number of things to say, some of them of some interest about the role of the United States in dealing with Iran. And Cory Booker wants to be a candidate, not a victim, but somebody who is claiming victim status right now may come as a surprise. It's ABC, ABC News, ABC Network. They say they have been a victim of a sustained, coordinated campaign of censorship and control by the Trump administration. Federal Communications Commissioner Anna Gomez told that to Josh D'Amaro, chief executive of Disney, the parent company of ABC. The parent company of ABC, the FCC under Republican Chairman Brendan Carr, has been weaponized to pressure a free and independent press and all media into submission. Gomez wrote in a letter sent to D'Amaro today and viewed by the Wall Street Journal. She is the lone Democratic commissioner on the FCC. Gomez has been an outspoken critic of many of Brendan Carr's actions, which she has alleged are aimed at pressuring broadcasters for political purposes. The letter to D'Amaro comes in the wake of several investigations into Disney and ABC initiated by Carr's FCC, including whether the talk show The View should continue to be granted certain exemptions as a news program. We'll see where that goes and more. Coming up with some shocking information about attitudes toward the April shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in this greatest nation on God's green earth.
Here's a special discount, 50% off just for being a MedHead annual member. Join today at michaelmedved.com.